The Bhagavad Gita, the Lord's Song, by Besant, narrated by Matthew Schmitz. First Discourse. Dhritarashtra said, on the holy plain, on Kurukshetra, gathered together, eager for battle, what did they do, O Sanjaya, my people and the Pandavas? Sanjaya said, having seen arrayed the army of the Pandavas, the Raja Duryodhana approached his teacher and spake these words. Behold this mighty host of the sons of Pandu, O teacher, arrayed by the son of Drupada, thy wise disciple. Heroes are these, mighty bowmen to Bhima and Arjuna, equal in battle. Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada of the great car. Dristakitu, Chekitana, and the Raja of Kashi, the valiant. Purujit and Kuntabhoja and Shaivya, bulls among men. Yudumanayu the strong, and Uttamauja the brave. Saubhadra and the Draupadeyas, all of great cars. Know also those who are the chief of ours, O best of the twice-born, the leaders of my army. These I name to thee for thy information. Thou, Lord, and Bhishma, and Karna and Kripa, conquering in battle. Ashwatthama, Vikarna, and Somadatta also, and many others, heroes, ready for my sake to give up their lives, trained in diverse weapons and missiles, and all well skilled in war. Yet insufficient seems this army of ours, though commanded by Bhishma, while sufficient seems that army of theirs, commanded even by Bhima. Therefore in the rank and file, let all stand firmly in their respective divisions, supporting Bhishma, even all ye generals. To hearten him, the ancient of the Kurus, the grandsire, the glorious, blew his conch, sounding on high a lion's roar. Then conchs and kettle drums, tabours and trumpets and cow horns suddenly blared forth, and the sound was an uproar. Then stationed in their great war chariot, yoked to white horses, Madhava and the son of Pandu blew their divine conchs. Panchajanya by Hrishikesha and Devadatta by Dhananjaya. Vrikodara, the terrible in action, blew his mighty conch, Pondra. The Raja, the son of Kunti, Yudhishthira, blew Ananta Vijaya. Nakula and Sahadeva Sugosha and Manu Pushpaka. And Kashya, chief of bowmen, and Shikandin of the great car, Drishtadayumna and Virata, and Satyaki, the unconquered. Drupada and the Draupadeyas, O Lord of earth, and Saubhadra, the great armed, on all sides their several conchs blew. That tumult pierced the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra, for truly the uproar re-echoed from earth and sky. Then beholding the sons of Dhritarashtra standing arrayed, and the flight of missiles about to begin, he whose crest is an ape, the son of Pandu, took up his bow, and spake this word to Hrishikesha, O Lord of earth. Arjuna said, in the midst, between the two armies, my chariot stay, O Achyuta, while I behold thee standing, longing for battle, with whom I must strive in this tremendous war, and gaze on those here gathered together, ready to fight, desirous of pleasing the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya said, thus addressed by Gudakesha, Hrishikesha, O Bharata, stayed that best of chariots in the midst, between the two armies, over against Bhishma, Drona, and all the rulers of the world, and said, O Partha, behold these Kurus gathered together. Then saw Partha standing there, uncles and grandfathers, teachers, mothers, brothers, cousins, their sons and grandsons, comrades, fathers-in-law, and benefactors also in both armies, seeing all these kinsmen thus standing arrayed, Kunteya, deeply moved to pity, this uttered in sadness. Arjuna said, "Seeing these my kinsmen arrayed, O Krishna, eager to fight, my limbs fail and my mouth is parched, my body quivers and my hair stands on end. Gandhaiva slips from my hand and my skin burns all over. I am not able to stand and my mind is whirling, and I see adverse omens, O Keshava. Nor do I foresee advantage by slaying kinsmen in battle, for I desire not victory, O Krishna, nor kingship nor pleasures. What is kingship to us, O Govinda? What enjoyment or even life? Those for whose sake we desire kingship, enjoyments and pleasures, they stand here in battle, abandoning breath and riches. Teachers, fathers, sons, as well as grandfathers, mothers, brothers, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives. These I do not wish to kill, though myself slain, O Madhusudana, even for the sake of the kingship of the three worlds. How then, for earth? Slaying these sons of Dhritarashtra, what pleasure may be ours, O Janardana? Killing these felons, sin will but take hold of us. It is not proper to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, our relatives, for how, killing our kinsmen, may we be happy, O Madhava? Although these, with intelligence overpowered by greed, see no guilt in the destruction of a family, no crime in hostility to friends, why should we not learn to turn away from such a sin, O Janardana, seeing the evils in the destruction of a family? In the destruction of a family, the immemorial family dharmas perish. In the perishing of dharma, lawlessness overcomes the whole family. Owing to predominance of lawlessness, O Krishna, the women of the family become corrupt. Women corrupted, O Varshneya, there ariseth caste confusion. This confusion draggeth to hell the family slaughterers and the family, for their ancestors fall, deprived of rice balls and libations. By these caste-confusing misdeeds of the family slaughterers, the eternal caste, dharma and family dharma, are abolished. Of the men whose family dharma is extinguished, or Janardana, the abode is everlastingly in hell. Thus have we heard. Alas, in committing a great sin are we engaged, we who are endeavoring to kill our kindred from greed of the pleasures of kingship. If the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapon in hand, should slay me, unresisting, unarmed in the battle, that would for me be the better. Sanjaya said, having thus spoken on the battlefield, Arjuna sank down on the seat of the chariot, casting away his bow and arrow, his mind overborne by grief. Thus in the glorious Upanishad of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the first discourse entitled The Despondency of Arjuna. Second Discourse. Sanjaya said, to him thus with pity overcome, with smarting, brimming eyes, despondent, Madhusudana spake these words. The blessed Lord said, whence hath this dejection befallen thee in this perilous strait, unarian, Svarga closing, infamous, O Arjuna? Yield not to impotence, O Partha, it doth not befit thee. Shake off this paltry faint-heartedness. Stand up, Parantapa. Arjuna said, how, Madhusudana, shall I attack with arrows in battle Bhishma and Drona, worthy of reverence, O slayer of foes? Better to eat in this world even the beggar's crust than to slay these gurus high-minded. Slaying these gurus, well-wishers, I should taste of blood besprinkled feasts, nor know I which for us would be the better, that we conquer them or they conquer us. These, whom having slain we should not care to live, even these arrayed against us, the sons of Dhritarashtra. My heart is weighed down with the vice of faintness. My mind is confused as to dharma. I ask thee which may be the better. That tell me decisively. I am thy disciple, suppliant to thee. Teach me. For I see not that it would drive away this anguish that withers up my senses, if I should attain monarchy on earth without a foe, or even the sovereignty of the gods." Sanjaya said, "Gudakesha, conqueror of his foes, having thus addressed Hrishikesha and said to Govinda, 'I will not fight,' became silent. Then Hrishikesha, tenderly smiling, O Bharata, in the midst of the two armies, to him, despondent, spake these words. The blessed Lord said, 'Thou grievest for those that should not be grieved for, and speakest words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. Nor at any time verily was I not, nor thou, nor these princes of men, nor verily shall we ever cease to be hereafter. As the dweller in the body seeketh in the body childhood, youth, and old age, so passeth he on to another body. The well-balanced grieveth not thereat. The contacts of the senses, O son of Kunti, giving cold and heat, pleasure and pain, they come and go, impermanent. Endure them bravely, O Bharata. The man whom these torment not, O chief of men, balanced in pain and pleasure, tranquil, he is fitted for immortality. The unreal hath no being, the real never ceaseth to be. The truth about both hath been perceived by the seers of the essence of things. Know that to be indestructible by whom all this is pervaded, nor can any work the destruction of that imperishable one. These bodies of the embodied one, which is eternal, indestructible, and boundless, are known as finite. Therefore fight, O Bharata. He who regardeth this as a slayer, and he who thinketh it is slain, both of them are ignorant. It slayeth not, nor is it slain. It is not born, nor doth it die, nor having been, ceaseth it any more to be. Unborn, perpetual, eternal, and ancient, it is not slain when the body is slaughtered. Who knoweth it indestructible, perpetual, unborn, undiminishing, how can that man slay, O Partha, or cause to be slain? As a man, casting off worn-out garments, taketh new ones, so the dweller in the body, casting off worn-out bodies, entereth into others that are new. Weapons cleave it not, nor fire burneth it, nor waters wet it, nor wind drieth it away. Uncleavable it, incombustible it, and indeed neither to be wetted nor dried away. Perpetual, all-pervasive, stable, immovable, ancient, unmanifest, unthinkable, immutable, it is called. Therefore, knowing it as such, thou shouldest not grieve. And if thou thinkest of it as constantly being born and constantly dying, even then, O mighty armed, thou shouldest not grieve. For sure is the death of him that is born, and sure the birth of him that is dead. Therefore, over the inevitable thou shouldest not grieve. Beings are unmanifest in their origin, manifest in their midmost state, O Bharata. Unmanifest also are they in dissolution. What room then for lamentation? As marvelous one regardeth it, as marvelous another speaketh thereof, as marvelous another heareth thereof, yet having heard, none indeed understandeth. This dweller in the body of everyone is ever invulnerable, O Bharata. Therefore thou shouldest not grieve for any creature. Further, looking upon thine own dharma, thou shouldest not tremble, for there is nothing more welcome to a kshatriya than righteous war. Happy the kshatriyas, O Partha, who obtain such a fight, spontaneously offered as an open door to Svarga. But if thou wilt not carry on this righteous warfare, then casting away thine own dharma and thine honor, thou wilt incur sin. Men will recount thy perpetual dishonor, and to a noble creature, dishonor is worse than death. The great Kar warriors will think thou hast fled the battle from fear, and thou that wast highly thought of by them wilt be lightly held. Many unseemly words will be spoken by thine enemies, slandering thy strength, but more painful than that. Slain, thou wilt obtain Svarga. Victorious, thou wilt enjoy the earth. Therefore stand up, O son of Kunti, resolute to fight. Taking as equal pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat, gird thee for the battle. Thus thou shalt not incur sin. This teaching set forth to thee is in accordance with the Sankhya. Hear it now according to yoga, imbued with which teaching, O Partha, thou shalt cast away the bonds of action. In this there is no loss of effort, nor is there disappointment. Even a little of this dharma frees one from great fear. The determinate reason is but one in this mortal life, O joy of the Kurus. Many-branched and endless are the thoughts of the irresolute. Flowery speech is uttered by the foolish, rejoicing in the words of the Vedas, O Partha. There is naught but this, say they. With kama for self, with svarga for goal, they offer birth as the fruit of action and prescribe many and various ceremonies for the attainment of pleasure and lordship. For them who cling to pleasure and lordship, whose minds are captivated by such speech, is not designed this determinate reason, on contemplation steadily bent. The Vedas deal with the three attributes. Be thou without these three attributes, O Arjuna, without the pairs of opposites, ever steadfast in sattva, careless of possessions, full of the self. All the Vedas are as useful to an enlightened Brahman as is a tank in a place covered all over with water. Thy business is with the action only, never with its fruits. So let not the fruit of action be thy motive, nor be thou to inaction attached. Perform action, O Dhananjaya, dwelling in union with the divine, renouncing attachments, and balanced evenly in success and failure. Equilibrium is called yoga. Far lower than buddhi yoga is action, O Dhananjaya. Take thou refuge in buddhi, pitiable are they who work for fruit. United to buddhi, one abandoneth here both good and evil deeds. Therefore cleave thou to yoga. Yoga is wisdom in action. The sages, united to buddhi, renounced the fruit which action yieldeth, and liberated from the bonds of birth, they go to the blissful seat. When thy buddhi shall pass beyond this mass of delusion, then thou shalt rise to indifference as to what has been heard and shall be heard. When thy buddhi, bewildered by the shruti, shall stand immovable, fixed in contemplation, then shalt thou attain to yoga. Arjuna said, What is the mark of him who is stable of mind, steadfast in contemplation, O Keshava? How doth the stable-minded talk? How doth he sit? How walk? The blessed Lord said, When a man abandoneth, O Partha, all the desires of the heart, and is satisfied in the self by the self, then is he called stable in mind. He whose manas is free from anxiety amid pains, indifferent amid pleasures, loosed from passion, fear, and anger, he is called a muni of stable mind. He who on every side is without attachments, whatever hap of fair and foul, who neither likes nor dislikes, of such a one the understanding is well poised. When, again, as a tortoise draws in on all sides its limbs, he withdraws his senses from the objects of sense, then is his understanding well poised. The objects of sense, save those of flavor, turn away from an abstemious dweller in the body, and even flavor turneth away from him after the supreme is seen. O son of Kunti, the aroused senses of even a wise man, though careful, impetuously carry away his manas. Having restrained them all, he should sit harmonized, devoted wholly to me. For whose senses are mastered, of him the understanding is well poised. If man, musing on the objects of sense, conceiveth an attachment to these, from attachment ariseth desire, from desire anger cometh forth, from anger proceedeth delusion, from delusion wandering memory, from wandering memory the destruction of buddhi, from destruction of buddhi he perishes. But the disciplined self, moving among sense objects with senses free from attraction and repulsion, mastered by the self, goeth to peace. In that peace the extinction of all pains ariseth for him, but of him whose heart is peaceful, the buddhi soon attaineth equilibrium. There is no buddhi for the non-harmonized, nor for the non-harmonized is there concentration. For him without concentration there is no peace, and for the unpeaceful, how can there be happiness? The manas of him who yieldeth to the roving senses destroyeth the understanding, just as the gale destroyeth ships upon the waters. Therefore, O mighty armed, whose senses are all completely restrained from their objects of sense, of him the understanding is well poised. That which is the night of all beings, for the disciplined man, is the time of waking. When other beings are waking, then is night for the Muni who seeth. He attaineth peace, into whom all desires flow as rivers flow into the ocean, which is filled with water, but remaineth unmoved. Not he who desireth desire. Whoso forsaketh all desires, and goeth onwards, free from yearnings, humble and unselfish, he goeth to peace. This is the Brahman state, O son of Prita. Having attained thereto, none is bewildered. Who at the death hour is established therein, he too goeth to the nirvana of Brahman. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the second discourse entitled Yoga by the Sankhya. Third discourse. Arjuna said, If it be thought by thee that knowledge is superior to action, O Janardana, why dost thou, O Keshava, enjoin on me this terrible action? With these perplexing words thou only confusest my understanding. Therefore, tell me with certainty the one way by which I may reach bliss. The Blessed Lord said, In this world there is a twofold path, as I said before, O sinless one, that of yoga by knowledge, of the Sankhyas, and that of yoga by action, of the yogis. Man winneth not freedom from activity by abstaining from action, nor by mere renunciation of activity doth he rise to perfection. Nor can anyone, even for an instant, remain actionless. For helplessly is every one driven to action by the energies born of nature. Who, controlling the organs of action, sitteth dwelling in his mind on the objects of the senses, that bewildered man is called a hypocrite. But who, controlling the senses by manas, O Arjuna, with the organs of action without attachment, performeth yoga by action, he is worthy. Perform thou right action, for action is superior to inaction, and inactive even the maintenance of thy body would not be possible. The world is bound by all action, by action with sacrifice for object. With such object, free from attachment, O son of Kunti, perform thou action. Having in ancient times emanated mankind by sacrifice, the Lord of Emanation said, By this shall ye propagate. Be this to you the Kamaduk. With this nourish ye the gods, and may the gods nourish you. Thus nourishing one another, ye shall reap the supremest good. For nourished by sacrifice, the gods shall bestow on you the enjoyments you desire. A thief verily is he who enjoyeth what is given by them without returning the gift. The righteous who eat the remains of the sacrifice are freed from all sins, but the impious who dress food for their own sakes, they verily eat sin. From food creatures become, from rain is the production of food. Rain proceedeth from the sacrifice, sacrifice ariseth out of action. Know thou from Brahma action groweth, and Brahma from the imperishable cometh. Therefore Brahman, the all-permeating, is ever present in sacrifice. He who on earth doth not follow the wheel thus revolving, sinful of life and rejoicing in the senses, he, O son of Prita, liveth in vain. But the man verily who rejoiceth in the self, with the self is satisfied, and is content in the self. For him there is nothing to do. For him there is no interest in things done in this world, nor any in things not done, nor doth any object of his depend on any being. Therefore, without attachment, constantly perform action which is duty, for performing action without attachment, man verily reacheth the supreme. Janaka and others indeed attained to perfection by action. Then, having an eye to the protection of the masses also, thou shouldest perform action. Whatsoever a great man doeth, that other men also do. The standard he setteth up, by that the people go. There is nothing in the three worlds, O Partha, that should be done by me, nor anything unattained that might be attained. Yet I mingle in action. For if I mingled not ever in action, unwearied, men all around would follow my path, O son of Pritha. These worlds would fall into ruin if I did not perform action. I should be the author of confusion of castes, and should destroy these creatures. As the ignorant act from attachment to action, O Bharata, so should the wise act without attachment, desiring the maintenance of mankind. Let no wise man unsettle the mind of ignorant people attached to action, but acting in harmony with me, let him render all action attractive. Actions are wrought by the energies of nature only. The self, deluded by egoism, thinketh, I am the doer. But he who knoweth the essence, O mighty-armed, the divisions of the energies and functions, holding that the energies move amid the energies, is not bound. Those deluded by the energies of nature are attached to the functions of the energies. The man of perfect knowledge should not unsettle the foolish whose knowledge is imperfect. Surrendering all actions to me, with thy thoughts resting on the Supreme Self, from hope and egoism freed, and of mental fever cured, engage in battle. Who abide ever in this teaching of mine, full of faith and free from cavilling, they too are released from actions. Who carp at my teaching and act not thereon, senseless, deluded in all knowledge, know thou them to be given over to destruction. Even the man of knowledge acteth according to his own nature. Beings follow nature. What shall restraint avail? Affection and aversion for the objects of sense abide in the senses. Let none come under the dominion of these two. They are his adversaries. Better one's own dharma, though destitute of merit, than the dharma of another, well discharged. Better death in the discharge of one's own dharma. The dharma of another is full of danger. Arjuna said, But dragged on by what does a man commit sin, reluctantly indeed, O Varshneya, as it were by force constrained? The blessed Lord said, It is desire, it is wrath, begotten by the Rajas energy, all-consuming, all-polluting. Know thou this as our foe here on earth. As a flame is enveloped by smoke, as a mirror by rust, as an embryo is wrapped by the womb, so this is enveloped by it. Enveloped is wisdom by this constant enemy of the wise in the form of desire, which is insatiable and a flame. The senses, manas and buddhi, are said to be its seat. By these enveloping wisdom, it bewilders the dweller in the body. Therefore, O best of the Bharatas, from the first, mastering the senses, do thou cast off this thing of sin, destructive of wisdom and knowledge. It is said that the senses are great. Greater than the senses is manas. Greater than manas is buddhi. But what is greater than buddhi is he. Thus understanding him as greater than buddhi, restraining the self by the self, slay thou, O mighty-armed, the enemy in the form of desire, difficult to overcome. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the third discourse entitled The Yoga of Action, Fourth Discourse. The Blessed Lord said, "This imperishable yoga I declared to Vivasvat. Vivasvat taught it to Manu. Manu to Ikshvaku told it. This, handed on down the line, the king sages knew. This yoga, by great efflux of time, decayed in the world, O Parantapa. This same ancient yoga hath been today declared to thee by me, for thou art my devotee and my friend. It is the supreme secret." Arjuna said, "Later was thy birth, earlier the birth of Vivasvat. How then should I understand thee? I declared it in the beginning." The Blessed Lord said, "Many births have been left behind by me and by thee, O Arjuna. I know them all, but thou knowest not thine, Parantapa. Though unborn, the imperishable self, and also the Lord of all beings, ruling over nature, which is mine own, yet I am born through my own Maya. Whenever there is decay of Dharma, O Bharata, and there is exaltation of Adharma, then I myself come forth. For the protection of the good, for the destruction of evildoers, for the sake of firmly establishing Dharma, I am born from age to age. He who thus knoweth my divine birth and action in its essence is not born again, having abandoned the body, but he cometh unto me, O Arjuna. Freed from passion, fear, and anger, thinking on me, taking refuge in me, purified in the fire of wisdom, many have entered into my being. However men approach me, even so do I accept them, for the path men take from every side is mine, O Partha. They who long after success in action sacrifice on earth to the gods. For in brief space, verily, in this world of men, success is born of action. The four castes emanated from me by the different distribution of energies and actions. Know me to be the author of them, though the actionless and inexhaustible. Nor do actions pollute me, nor is the fruit of action desired by me. He who thus knoweth me is not bound by actions. Having thus known, our forefathers performed action for the sake of liberation. Therefore, do thou also perform action, as did our forefathers in the olden time. What is action? What inaction? Even the wise are hereby perplexed. I will declare to thee the action by knowing which thou shalt be loosed from evil. It is needful to discriminate action, to discriminate unlawful action, and to discriminate inaction. Difficult to tread is the path of action. He who can see inaction in action, and action in inaction, he is spiritually wise among men. He is harmonious. He hath performed all action. Whose works are all free from the molding of desire, whose actions are burned up by the fire of wisdom, he is called a sage by the spiritually wise. Having abandoned all attachment to the fruit of action, always content, seeking refuge in none, although doing actions, he is not doing anything. Free from desire, his thoughts controlled by the self, having abandoned all attachment, performing action by the body alone, he doth not commit sin. Content with whatsoever he receiveth, free from the pairs of opposites, without envy, balanced in success and failure, though he hath acted, he is not bound. For with attachment dead, harmonious, his thoughts established in wisdom, his work sacrifices, all his action melts away. Brahman, the oblation, Brahman, the clarified butter, are offered to Brahman the fire, by Brahman. Unto Brahman verily shall he go who in his action meditateth wholly upon Brahman. Some yogis offer up sacrifice to the gods, others sacrifice only by pouring sacrifice into the fire of Brahman. Some pour as sacrifice hearing and the other senses into the fire of concentration. Some pour sound and the other objects of sense into the fires of the senses as sacrifice. Others again into the wisdom-kindled fires of concentration in and union with the self, pour as sacrifice all the functions of the senses and the functions of life. Yet others the sacrifice of wealth, the sacrifice of austerity, the sacrifice of yoga, the sacrifice of silent reading and wisdom, men concentrated and of effectual vows. Yet others pour as sacrifice the outgoing breath in the incoming, and the incoming in the outgoing, impeding the channels of the outgoing and incoming breaths solely absorbed in pranayama. Others, regular in food, pour as sacrifice their life breaths in life breaths. All these are knowers of sacrifice, and by sacrifice their sins are put an end to. The eaters of the Amrita remains of sacrifices go to the eternal Brahman. This world is not for the non-sacrificer, much less the other, O best of the Kurus. Many and various sacrifices are thus spread out before Brahman. Know thou that all these are born of action, and thus knowing thou shalt be free. Better than the sacrifice of wealth is the sacrifice of wisdom, O Parantapa. All actions in their entirety, O Partha, are contained in wisdom. Learn thou this by discipleship, by questionings, and by worship. The wise, the seers of the essence of things, will instruct thee in wisdom. And having known this, thou shalt not again fall into this confusion, O Pandava, for by this thou wilt see all beings without exception in the self, and all in me. Even if thou beest among all evil men the most evil-doing, yet shalt thou escape from all sin by the raft of wisdom. As the burning fire reduces fuel to ashes, O Arjuna, so doth the fire of wisdom reduce all actions to ashes. Verily, there is no purifier in this world of the same worth as wisdom. He that is perfected in yoga finds it in the self with the efflux of time. The man who is full of faith and who hath mastery over his senses obtaineth wisdom, and having obtained wisdom, he goeth swiftly to the supreme peace. But the ignorant, faithless, doubting self goeth to destruction. Neither in this world nor in that beyond is there happiness for the doubting self. He who hath renounced actions by yoga, who hath cloven asunder doubt by wisdom, who is ruled by the self, actions do not bind him, O Dhananjaya. Therefore, with the sword of the wisdom of the self, cleave asunder this ignorance-born doubt, dwelling in thy heart, and be established in yoga. Stand up, O Bharata. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the fourth discourse entitled The Yoga of Wisdom. Fifth Discourse. Arjuna said, Renunciation of actions, O Krishna, thou praisest, and then yoga. Of the two, which one is better? Tell me that conclusively. The Blessed Lord said, Renunciation and yoga by action both lead to the highest bliss. Of the two, yoga by action is verily better than renunciation of action. He should be known as a perpetual sannyasi who neither hateth nor desireth, free from the pairs of opposites, O mighty armed. He is easily set free from bondage. Children, not sages, speak of the Sankhya and yoga as different. He who is duly established in one obtaineth the fruits of both. That place which is gained by the Sankhyas is reached by the yogis also. He seeth who seeth that the Sankhya and the yoga are one. But for him without yoga, O mighty armed, renunciation is hard to attain to. The yoga-harmonized Muni swiftly goeth to Brahman. He who is harmonized by yoga, the self-purified, self-ruled, the senses subdued, whose self is the self of all beings, although acting, he is not polluted. I do not anything should think the harmonized one, who knoweth the essence of things, in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, speaking, letting go, grasping, opening and closing the eyes, he saith, the senses move among the objects of sense. He who acteth, placing all actions in Brahman, abandoning attachment, is unpolluted by sin as a lotus leaf by the waters. Holy by the body, by manas, by buddhi, and even by the senses, yogis perform action, having abandoned attachment for the purification of the self. The harmonized man, having abandoned the fruit of action, attaineth to everlasting peace. The non-harmonized, impelled by desire, attached to fruit, are bound. Renouncing all actions by manas, the sovereign dweller in the body resteth serenely in the nine-gated city, neither acting nor causing to act. The Lord of the world produceth neither the faculty of acting, nor actions, nor the union together of action and its fruit. Nature, however, energizeth. The Lord accepteth neither the evil nor yet the well-doing of any. Wisdom is enveloped by unwisdom. Therewith mortals are deluded. Verily, in whom unwisdom is destroyed by the wisdom of the self, in them wisdom irradiates that highest shining as the sun. Thinking on that, the self that, believing in that, solely devoted to that, they go whence there is no return, their sins dispelled by wisdom. The sage looketh equally on a perfectly learned and humble Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, and even a dog and a svapaka. Even here on earth everything is overcome by those of balanced, constant manas. Brahman is incorruptible and balanced. Therefore they are established in Brahman. One should neither rejoice in obtaining what is pleasant, nor sorrow in obtaining what is unpleasant. With buddhi firm, unperplexed, the Brahman knower is established in Brahman. He whose self is unattached to external contacts finds joy in the self, and he, having the self harmonized with Brahman by yoga, enjoys happiness exempt from decay. The delights that are contact-born, they are verily wombs of pain, for they have beginning and ending, O Konteya. Not in them may rejoice the spiritually wise. He who is able to endure here on earth, ere he be liberated from the body, the impact produced by desire and passion, he is harmonized. He is a happy man. He who is happy within, who rejoices within, and who is illuminated within, he, a yogi, goeth to the nirvana of Brahman, is of the nature of Brahman. The rishis obtain the nirvana of Brahman, their sins destroyed, their duality removed, their selves controlled, intent upon the welfare of all beings. Near to the nirvana of Brahman approach those who know themselves, who are disjoined from desire and passion, subdued in nature of subdued thoughts. Having made external contacts external, and with gaze fixed between the eyebrows, having made the outcoming and incoming breaths equal, sending both through the nostrils, with senses, manas and buddhi controlled, solely devoted to liberation, the Muni, having cast away hope, fear, and passion, he verily is liberated forever. Having known me as the Lord of sacrifice and of austerity, the mighty ruler of all the worlds, and the lover of all beings, he goeth to peace. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, in the scripture of yoga, in the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the fifth discourse entitled, The Yoga of the Renouncial of Action. Sixth Discourse. The Blessed Lord said, He that performeth action as duty, independently of the fruit of action, he is a sannyasi, and he is a yogi, not he that is without fire, and who doeth nothing. That which is called renunciation, know thou that is yoga, O Pandava. Nor doth any one become a yogi with the formative will unrenounced. For a Muni who is seeking yoga, action is called the method. For him who enjoyeth it, serenity is called the method. When among the objects of sense and among actions he feeleth no longings, nor any formative willings, then, successful in yoga, he is called a sannyasi. Let him raise the self by the self, nor let the self become disheartened. Verily, the self is the friend of the self, and also the self is the self's enemy. For the self is the friend of the self of him in whom the self by the self is vanquished. But full of enmity to the unsubdued self, the self verily turneth into an enemy. The higher self of him who is self-vanquished and peaceful is calm in cold and heat, pleasure and pain, and also in honor and dishonor. He who is satisfied with wisdom and knowledge, unchanging, the senses subdued, harmonized, to whom a lump of earth, a stone, and gold are the same, is called a yogi. He who among lovers, friends, and foes, strangers, neutrals, foreigners, and relatives, and also among the righteous and unrighteous, is of balanced buddhi, is highly esteemed. Let the yogi constantly engage himself in yoga, remaining in a secret place by himself alone, with thought and self-subdued, free from attachment and hope. In a pure place, established on a fixed seat of his own, neither very much raised nor very low, made of a cloth, a black antelope skin, and kusha grass. There having made manas one-pointed, with thought and the functions of the senses subdued, steady on his seat, he should practice yoga for the purification of the self. Body, head, and neck balanced, immovably steady, looking fixedly at the point of the nose with unwandering gaze. The self serene, fearless, firm in the vow of the Brahmachari, manas controlled, thinking on me, harmonized, let him sit concentrated on me. The yogi, ever united with the self, with manas controlled, goeth to peace, to the supreme nirvana that abideth in me. Verily, yoga is not for him who eateth too much, nor who abstaineth to excess, nor who is addicted to too much sleep, or even to wakefulness, O Arjuna. The yoga that is pain-destroying is for him who is regulated in eating and amusement, regulated in performing actions, regulated in sleeping and waking. When his subdued thought is fixed on the self, free from longing after all desirable things, then it is said he is harmonized. As a lamp sheltered from the wind flickereth not, such the traditional simile of the yogi of subdued thought, absorbed in the yoga of the self. When the mind is quiet, stopped by the practice of yoga, when he seeth the self by the self, and in the self is satisfied, when he knoweth the infinite delight grasped by buddhi beyond the senses, and established therein, moveth not from the reality, and having obtained it, thinketh there is no gain beyond it greater than it, wherein established no pain, however great, can stagger him. Be it known that this disconnection from the union with pain is called yoga. This yoga must be clung to with a firm conviction and steady thoughts. Abandoning without reserve all desires born of the imagination, by manas curbing in the aggregate of the senses on every side, little by little let him gain tranquility by means of buddhi, controlled by steadiness. Having made manas abide in the self, let him not think of anything. Whensoever the wavering and unsteady manas goeth forth, then let him rein it in and replace it subdued in the self. Supreme joy is for that yogi whose manas is peaceful, whose passion nature is calmed, who is sinless and of the nature of Brahman. The yogi who ever harmonizes the self with Brahman and who hath put away sin, he with ease reacheth the infinite joy of contact with Brahman. The self, harmonized by yoga, seeth the self abiding in all beings in the self. Everywhere he seeth the same. He who seeth me everywhere, and seeth everything in me, of him will I never lose hold, and he will never lose hold of me. He who established in unity worshippeth me, abiding in all beings, that yogi cometh to me, whatever his mode of existence. He who through the likeness of the self, O Arjuna, seeth identity in everything, whether pleasant or painful, he is regarded as a perfected yogi. Arjuna said, This yoga which thou hast declared to be by equanimity, O Madhusudana, I see not a stable foundation for it, owing to restlessness. For manas is very restless, O Krishna. It is impetuous, strong, and difficult to bend. I deem it as hard to curb as the wind. The Blessed Lord said, Without doubt, O mighty-armed manas is hard to curb and restless, but it may be curbed by constant practice and by indifference. Yoga is hard to attain, methinks, by a self that is uncontrolled, but by the self-ruled it is verily to be attained, if he labor to approach thereto with energy. Arjuna said, "He who is unsubdued, but who possesseth faith with manas wandering away from yoga, and who faileth to attain perfection in yoga, by what road doth he go, O Krishna? Fallen from both, is he destroyed like a rent cloud, unsteadfast, O mighty-armed, deluded in the path of Brahman. Deign, O Krishna, to completely dispel this doubt of mine, for there is none to be found save thyself able to destroy this doubt." The blessed Lord said, "O son of Pritha, neither in this world nor in the life to come is there destruction for him. Never doth any who worketh righteousness, O beloved, tread the path of woe. Having attained to the worlds of the pure doing, and having dwelt there for eternal years, he who fell from yoga is reborn in a pure and blessed house. Or else he is born into a family of intelligent yogis, but such a birth as that is hard to obtain in this world. There he obtaineth the complete yogic wisdom belonging to his former body, and then again laboreth for perfection, O joy of the Kurus. By that former practice he is involuntarily guided. Only wishing to know yoga, one goeth beyond the Brahmic word. But the yogi, verily, laboring with assiduity, purified from sin, fully perfected through manifold births, he treadeth the supreme path. The yogi is greater than the ascetics. He is thought to be greater than even the wise. The yogi is greater than the men of action. Therefore become thou a yog, O Arjuna, and among all yogis, he who with the inner self abideth in me, who, full of faith, adoreth me, he is considered by me to be the most completely harmonized." Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the sixth discourse, entitled The Yoga of Self-Subdual. Seventh Discourse. The blessed Lord said, "With manas clinging to me, O Partha, constant in yoga, refuged in me, how thou shalt without doubt know me to the uttermost, that hear thou. I will declare to thee wholly this knowledge and wisdom, which having known, there is nothing more here remaineth to be known. Among thousands of men scarce one striveth for perfection. Of these successful strivers, scarce one knoweth me in essence. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, manas and buddhi, also and ankara, these are the eightfold division of my prakriti, this the inferior. Know my other prakriti, the higher, the life element, O mighty-armed, by which the universe is upheld. This, the treasuring womb, verily of all beings. I am the going forth of the whole universe, and likewise its dissolving. There is naught whatsoever higher than I, O Dhananjaya. All this is woven in me as multitudes of jewels on a string. I, the sapidity in waters, O son of Kunti. I, the radiance in moon and sun, pranava in all the Vedas, sound in ether, and virility in men. The pure fragrance of earths and the brilliance in fire am I, the life in all beings, and I am the austerity in ascetics. Know me, O Partha, as the eternal seed of all beings. I am the buddhi of the buddhi endowed, the splendor of splendid things am I. And I the strength of the strong, devoid of desire and passion. In beings I am desire not contrary to Dharma, O Lord of the Bharatas. The natures that are sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, these know as from me, not I in them, but they in me. All this world, deluded by these natures made by the 3 Gunas, knoweth not me, above these, imperishable. This divine Maya of mine, Guna made, is hard to pierce. They who come to me, they cross over this Maya. The evil-doing, the deluded, the vilest men, they come not to me. They whose wisdom is destroyed by Maya, who have endued the nature of asuras. Fourfold in division are the righteous ones who worship me, O Arjuna, the suffering, the seeker for knowledge, the strenuous, the wise, O Lord of the Bharatas. Of these, the wise, constantly harmonized, worshipping the One, is the best. I am supremely dear to the wise, and he is dear to me. Noble are all these, but I hold the wise as verily myself. He, self-united, is fixed on me, the highest path. At the close of many births, the man full of wisdom cometh unto me. Vasudeva is all, saith he, the Mahatma, very difficult to find. They whose wisdom hath been rent away by desires go forth to other gods, resorting to various external observances according to their own natures. Whosoever seeketh to worship with faith any such semblance, I verily bestow the unswerving faith of that man. He, united to that faith, seeketh the worship of such a one, and he obtaining these desires, I verily decreeing the benefits. Finite indeed their fruit. This belongeth to those who are of small intelligence. To the gods go the worshippers of the gods, but my devotees come unto me. Those without buddhi think of me, the unmanifest, as having manifestation. They know not my supreme nature, imperishable, most excellent. Nor am I of all discovered, enveloped in my yoga maya. This deluded world knoweth me not, the unborn, the imperishable. I know the beings that are past, that are present, that are to come, O Arjuna, but not one knoweth me. By the delusion of the pairs of opposites, sprung from attraction and repulsion, O Bharata, all beings walk this universe wholly deluded, O Parantapa. But of those men of pure deeds, in whom sin is come to an end, they who are freed from the delusive pairs of opposites worship me, steadfast in vows. They who strive for liberation from birth and death, refuged in me, they know Brahman, that whole, Adhyatma, and all karma. They who know me as Adibhuta, as Adidaiva, and as Adiyagnya, they, harmonized in mind, know me verily in the time of forthgoing. Thus, in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the seventh discourse entitled The Yoga of Discriminative Knowledge. Eighth Discourse. Arjuna said, What that Brahman, what Adhyatma, what Karma, O Purushottama, and what is declared Adibhuta, what is called Adidaiva, what Adiyagnya, how here in this body, O Madhusudana, and how at the time of forthgoing art thou known by the self-controlled? The Blessed Lord said, The indestructible, the supreme, is Brahman. His essential nature is called Adhyatma. The expansion that causes the birth of beings is named Karma. Adibhuta is my perishable nature, and Adidaiva, the life-giving energy. Adiyagnya am I, here in the body, O best of living beings. And he who remembereth me at the time of the end, being freed from the body, he, going forth, entereth into my being. There is no doubt of that. But whosoever at the end, abandoning the body, remembereth any being, he goeth to that, O Kaunteya, ever to that conformed in nature. Therefore at all times remember me exclusively, and fight. With manas and buddhi set on me, without doubt thou shalt come to me. By the continual practice of yoga, the mind not passing over to any other, constantly meditating, O Partha, one goeth to the Purusha, the Supreme, the Divine. He who remembereth exclusively the Ancient, the Omniscient, the All-Ruler, minuter than the atom, the support of all, of form unimaginable, beauteous as the sun beyond the darkness, in the time of forthgoing with unshaken manas, fixed in devotion, by the power of yoga drawing together his life-breath in the center of the two eyebrows, he goeth to this Purusha, supreme, divine. That indestructible path declared by the Veda knowers, that the controlled and passion-free enter, That desiring Brahmakarya is performed, that I will declare to thee with brevity. All the gates closed, Manas confined in the heart, the life breath fixed in his own head, firm in yoga. Om, the one indestructible Brahman, reciting exclusively remembering me. He who thus goeth forth, abandoning the body, he goeth on the highest path. He who constantly remembereth me, not thinking ever of another, of him I am easily reached, O Partha, of this ever harmonized yogi. Having come to me, these Mahatmas come not again to birth, the place of pain, non-eternal. They go to the highest bliss. The worlds, beginning with the world of Brahma, return again, O Arjuna. He who cometh unto me, O Kunteya, verily he knoweth birth no more. The people who know the day of Brahma, 1,000 yugas in revolution, and the night, 1,000 ages in ending, they know day and night. From the unmanifested, all the manifested stream forth at the coming of day. At the coming of night they dissolve, even in that called the unmanifested. This multitude of beings going forth repeatedly is dissolved at the coming of night. Not by its will, O Partha, it streams forth at the coming of day. Therefore, verily, there existeth higher than the manifested, another, unmanifested, eternal, which in the destroying of all beings is not destroyed. Unmanifested, indestructible, that is called. It is named the highest path. They who reach it return not. That is my highest dwelling place. He, the highest Purusha, O Partha, may be reached by devotion to him only, in whom all beings abide, by whom all this is spread out. In what time yogis, going forth, go to return not, and also to return, that time will I declare to thee, O Prince of the Bharatas. Fire, light, daytime, the bright fortnight, the 6 months of the northern path. Then, going forth, the men who know Brahman go to Brahman. Smoke, nighttime, the dark fortnight also, the 6 months of the southern path. Then the yogi, obtaining the moonlight, returneth. Light and darkness, these are thought the world's eternal paths. By the one he goeth who returneth not, by the other he returneth again. Knowing these paths, O Partha, the yogi is nowise troubled. Therefore in all times be firm in yoga, O Arjuna. The pure fruit declared in the Vedas, in sacrifices, in austerities, and also in almsgiving. Having known this, the yogi passeth all by, and goeth to the supreme and ancient seat. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 8th discourse entitled, The Yoga of the Indestructible Supreme Brahman. 9th discourse. The Blessed Lord said, To thee, the uncarping, verily I will declare this secret, both wisdom and knowledge, which, having known, thou shalt be freed from evil. Kingly science, kingly secret, supreme purifier, this, explicit according to Dharma, very easy to perform, imperishable. Men without faith, not receiving this Dharma, O Parantapa, reach me not. They return to the paths of this mortal world. By me, all this world is spread out, the embodiment of the unmanifested. All beings have root in me. I am not established in them, nor have beings root in me. Behold, my sovereign yoga. The support of beings and not rooted in beings, myself their efficient cause. As rooted in the Akasha, the mighty air moves everywhere, so all things rest rooted in me. So know thou. All things, O Kunteya, go into my Prakriti at the destruction of a kalpa. At the beginning of a kalpa, I again send them out. Abiding Prakriti's Lord, I send forth again and again all this multitude of beings without their force, by the force of Prakriti. Nor do these words bind me, O Dhananjaya, sitting indifferent, unattached amid these works. By my presiding, Prakriti sends forth the moving and unmoving. Because of this, O Kantaya, the universe revolves. The foolish disregard me when clad in human semblance, ignoring my higher nature, the great Lord of beings, empty of hope, empty of deeds, empty of wisdom, senseless, partaking of the deceiving Rakshasic and Asuric Prakriti. Verily, the Mahatmas, O Partha, partaking of my divine Prakriti, worship with manas, fixed on no other, having known the imperishable source of beings, always praising me, strenuous, firm in vows, prostrating themselves before me, worshipping in binding love. Others also sacrifice with the sacrifice of wisdom, worshipping me as the one and the manifold everywhere, pervading all forms. I, the oblation, I, the sacrifice, I, the ancestral offering, I, the fire-giving herb, the mantram, I also the butter, I, the fire, I, the burnt offering, I, the father of this universe, the mother, the supporter, the grandsire, the one purifier to be known, the Omkara, and also the Rig, Sama, and Yajur. The path, nourisher, lord, witness, abode, shelter, lover, origin, dissolution, foundation, treasure house, seed imperishable. I give heat, I hold back and send forth the rain, immortality and also death. Sat and Asat am I, Arjuna. The knowers of the three, the soma drinkers, the purified from sin, the sacrificers, pray of me the way to Svarga. They reach the holy world of the god Indra and eat in heaven the divine feasts of the gods. They, having enjoyed the spacious Svarga world, their holiness withered, come back to this mortal world. Following the virtues enjoined by the three, desiring desires, they obtain the transitory. To those men who worship me, not meditating on another, to those ever harmonious, I bring full security of yoga. They also who worship other gods with devotion, full of faith, they also worship me, O son of Kunti, though contrary to the ancient rule. I am indeed the enjoyer of all sacrifices, and also the Lord, but verily they know me not in essence, and hence they fall. They who worship the gods go to the gods. To the Pitris go the Pitri worshippers. To the Bhuttas go those who sacrifice to Bhuttas. But my worshippers come unto me. He who offereth to me with devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, water, that I accept from the purified self, offered as it is with devotion. Whatsoever thou doest, whatsoever thou eatest, whatsoever thou offerest, whatsoever thou givest, whatsoever thou doest of austerity, O Kanteya, do thou as an offering unto me. Thus shalt thou be liberated from the bands of actions of good and evil fruits. Thyself knit to the Yoga of Renunciation, thou shalt come unto me when set free. The same am I amid all beings. There is none hateful to me, nor dear. They verily who worship me with devotion, they are in me, and I also in them. But if an unrighteous person worship me, worshipping not another, he must ever be accounted righteous, for he hath rightly resolved. Speedily he becometh dutiful, and goeth to eternal peace. O Konteya, know thou certainly that my devotee is never destroyed. They who take refuge with me, O Partha, though of the womb of sin, women, Vaishyas, and even Shudras, they also tread the highest path. How much rather holy Brahmins and devoted royal saints. Having obtained this transient, joyless world, worship thou me. On me fix thy manas, be devoted to me, sacrifice to me, prostrate thyself before me. Harmonized thus in the self, thou shalt come unto me, being devoted to me. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 9th discourse entitled The Yoga of the Kingly Science and the Kingly Secret. 10th Discourse. The Blessed Lord said, Again, O mighty armed, hear thou my supreme word, that desiring thy welfare, I will declare to thee who art beloved. The multitude of the gods, or the great rishis, know not my forthcoming, for I am the beginning of all the gods and the great rishis. He who knoweth me, unborn, beginningless, the great Lord of the world, he among mortals is without delusion, liberated from all sin. Buddhi, wisdom, non-illusion, endurance, truth, passionlessness, calmness, pleasure, pain, birth, existence, fear, and also courage, harmlessness, equanimity, content, austerity, almsgiving, fame, and obloquy are the characteristics of being as severally apportioned by me. The 7 great rishis, the 4 ancients, and also the Manus were born of my nature and mind. Of them, this race was generated. He who knows in essence that sovereignty and yoga of mine, he is harmonized by unchanging yoga. There is no doubt thereof. I am the generator of all. All evolves from me. Having thus thought, the wise adore me, partaking of my nature. Mindful of me, their life hidden in me, teaching each other grade by grade, ever conversing about me, they are content and joyful. To these, ever harmonious, worshipping in love, I give the Buddhi Yoga by which they come unto me. In them, out of compassion, dwelling within the self, I destroy the ignorance-born darkness by the shining lamp of wisdom. Arjuna said, Thou art the supreme Brahman, the supreme abode, the supreme purifier, Purusha, eternal, divine, primeval God, unborn, the Lord. All the rishis acclaim thee as also the divine rishi Narada, Soasita, Devala, Vyasa, and now thou thyself tellest it me. All this I believe true that thou sayest to me, O Keshava. Thy manifestation, O blessed Lord, neither gods nor Danavas comprehend. Thyself indeed knowest thyself by thyself, O Purushottama, source of beings, Lord of beings, God of gods, ruler of the world. Deign to tell without reserve of thy divine self-sovereignty, by which sovereignty thou stayest, pervading these worlds. How may I know thee, O yogi, by constant meditation? In what qualities art thou to be thought of by me, O blessed Lord? In minute detail, tell me again of thyself, thy yoga and sovereignty, O Janardana. There is for me never satiety in hearing thy life-giving words. The blessed Lord said, Blessed be thou. I will declare to thee my divine sovereignty by its chief characteristics, O best of the Kurus. There is no end to my minute details. I, O Gudakesha, am the Self, seated in the heart of all beings. I am the beginning, the middle, and also the end of all beings. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of radiances, the glorious sun. I am Marichi of the Maruts. Of the asterisms, the moon am I. Of the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. I am Vasava of the gods, and of the senses, I am Manas. I am of living beings, the intelligence. And of the Rudras, Shankara am I, Vitesha of the Yakshas and the Rakshasas. And of the Vasus, I am Pavaka, Meru of high mountains am I. And of household priests, the chief, know me, O Partha, Vrihaspati. Of generals, I am Skanda. Of lakes, I am the ocean. Of the great rishis, Bhrigu, I. Of speech, I am the one syllable. Of sacrifices, I am the sacrifice of silent repetitions. Of immovable things, Himalaya. Asvata of all trees, and of divine rishis, Narada, of Gandharvas Chittaratha, of the perfected, the Muni Kapila. Ukrai Shravas of horses know me, Amrita born, Aravata of lordly elephants, and of men the monarch. Of weapons I am the thunderbolt, of cows I am Kamaduk, and of progenitors I am Kandarpa, of serpents Vasuki am I. And I am Ananta of Nagas, Varuna of sea monsters I, and of Pitri's Aryaman, Yama of judges am I. And I am Pralada of Daityas, of measures time am I. And of wild beasts I, the imperial beast, and Vainateya of birds. Of purifications I am the wind, Rama of warriors I, and I am Makara of fishes, of streams the Ganges am I. Of creations the beginning and the ending, and also the middle am I, O Arjuna. Of sciences the science of Adhyatma, the speech of orators I. Of letters the letter A I am, and the Devandva of a composite. I also inexhaustible time, I the supporter whose face turns everywhere. And all-devouring death am I, and the origin of all to come, and of female things, fame, prosperity, speech, memory, intelligence, constancy, endurance. Of songs also Vriatsaman, Gayatri of meters am I. Of months I am Margashirsha, of seasons the flowery. I am the gambling of the rogue, and the splendor of splendid things I. I am victory, I am strenuous exertion, and the truth of the truthful I. Of the Vrishnis, Vasudeva am I, of the Pandavas, Dhananjaya, of the Munis also I am Vyasa, of wise men, Ushana the sage. Of subjugating things I am the scepter, of conquerors I am statesmanship, and of secrecy I am also silence. The knowledge of knowers am I. And whatsoever is the seed of all beings, that am I, O Arjuna, nor is there aught, moving or unmoving, that may exist bereft of me. There is no end of my divine powers, O Parantapa. These details of my sovereignty have been declared only in brief. Whatsoever is royal, good, prosperous, and mighty, understand thou that to go forth from my splendor. But what is the knowledge of all these details to thee, O Arjuna? Having pervaded this whole universe with a portion of myself, I exist. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 10th discourse entitled The Yoga of Sovereignty. 11th Discourse. Arjuna said, This word thou hast spoken for my benefit of the supreme secret, named Adhyatma. By this my delusion is taken away. The production and destruction of beings have been heard by me in minute detail from thee, O lotus-eyed, and also thy imperishable greatness. According as thou thyself declarest, O supreme Ishvara, I desire to see thy form as Ishvara, O best of beings. If thou thinkest there is strength in me to see it, O Lord, Lord of Yoga, then show me thine imperishable self. Behold, O Partha, the forms of me, by hundreds and by thousands, various in kind, divine, various in color and shape. Behold the Adityas, the Vasus, the Rudras, the 2 Ashvins, and also the Maruts. Behold many marvels never seen ere this, O Bharata. Here, today, behold the whole universe, movable and immovable, standing in one, in my body, O Gudakesha, with aught else thou desirest to see. But verily, thou art not able to behold me with these thine eyes. The divine eye I give unto thee. Behold my divine yoga. Sanjaya said, Having thus spoken, O king, The great Lord of Yoga, Hari, showed to Partha his supreme form as Ishvara, with many mouths and eyes, with visions of many marvels, with many divine ornaments, with many divine weapons, wearing divine necklaces and vestures, anointed with divine unguents, all marvelous, shining, boundless, with face turned everywhere. If the splendor of 1,000 suns were to rise up together in the heaven, it would appear as the shining of that Mahatma. There the whole universe, divided into manifold parts, was beheld by Pandava standing in one, in the body of the God of gods. Then he, Dhananjaya, overwhelmed with astonishment, his hair upstanding with delight, bowed down his head, and with joined palms spake to the God. Arjuna said, "Within thy form, O God, the gods I see, all grades of beings with distinctive marks. Brahma, the Lord, upon his lotus throne, the rishis all, and serpents, the divine, with mouths, eyes, arms, breasts, multitudinous, I see thee everywhere, unbounded form. Beginning, middle, end, nor source of thee, infinite Lord, infinite form, I find. Shining, a mass of splendor everywhere, with the discus, mace, tiara, I behold. Blazing as fire, as sun, dazzling the gaze, from all sides in the sky, immeasurable. Lofty beyond all thought, unperishing, thou treasure house supreme, all immanent, eternal Dharma's changeless guardian, thou. As immemorial man I think of thee, nor source, nor midst, nor end. Infinite force, unnumbered arms, the sun and moon as eyes. I see thy face as sacrificial fire blazing, its splendor burneth up the worlds. By thee alone are filled the earth, the heavens, and all the regions that are stretched between. The triple worlds sink down, O Mighty One, before thine awful manifested form. To thee the troops of Suras enter in, some with joined palms in awe invoking thee. Banded Maharshis, Siddhas, Savasti cry, chanting thy praises with resounding songs. Rudras, Vasus, Sadyas, and Adityas, Vishvas, Dhyashvins, Maruts, Ushmapas, Gandharvas, Yakshas, Siddhas, Asuras, in wondering multitudes beholding thee. Thy mighty form, with many mouths and eyes, long-armed, with thighs and feet innumerate, vast-bosomed, set with many fearful teeth, the world see terror-struck, as also I. Radiant thou touchest heaven, rainbow-hued, with open mouths and shining vast-orbed eyes. My inmost self is quaking, having seen. My strength is withered, Vishnu, and my peace. Like time's destroying flames I see thy teeth, upstanding, spread within expanded jaws. Naught know I anywhere, no shelter find. Mercy, O God, refuge of all the worlds. The sons of Dhritarashtra, and with them the multitude of all these kings of earth, Bhishma, Drona, Suta's royal son, and all the noblest warriors of our hosts, into thy gaping mouths they hurrying rush, tremendous toothed and terrible to see. Some caught within the gaps between thy teeth are seen, their heads to powder crushed and ground, as river floods impetuously rush, hurling their waters into ocean's lap. So fling themselves into thy flaming mouths, in haste, these mighty men, these lords of earth. As moths with quickened speed will headlong fly into a flaming light, to fall destroyed, so also these in haste precipitate, enter within thy mouths destroyed to fall. On every side, all swallowing, fiery-tongued, thou lickest up mankind, devouring all. Thy glory filleth space, The universe is burning, Vishnu, with thy blazing rays. Reveal thyself. What awful form art thou? I worship thee. Have mercy, God supreme. Thine inner being I am fain to know. This, thy forth streaming life, bewilders me. The blessed Lord said, Time am I, laying desolate the world, made manifest on earth to slay mankind. Not one of all these warriors ranged for strife escapeth death. Thou shalt alone survive. Therefore stand up, win for thyself renown, conquer thy foes, enjoy the spacious realm. By me they are already overcome. Be thou the outward cause, left-handed one. Drona and Bhishma and Jayadratha, Karna and all the other warriors here are slain by me. Destroy then fearlessly. Fight. Thou shalt crush thy rivals in the field. Sanjaya said, Having heard these words of Keshava, he who weareth a diadem with joined palms, quaking and prostrating himself, spake again to Krishna, stammering with fear, casting down his face. Arjuna said, Hrishikesha, in thy magnificence, rightly the world rejoiceth, bound to thee. The Rakshasas to every quarter fly in fear. The hosts of Siddhas prostrate fall. How should they otherwise, O loftiest self? First cause, Brahma himself, less great than thou, infinite, God of gods, home of all worlds, unperishing, Sat Asat, that's supreme. First of the gods, most ancient man thou art, supreme receptacle of all that lives, knower and known, the dwelling place on high, in thy vast form the universe is spread. Thou art Vayu and Yama, Agni, Moon, Varuna, Father, Grandsire of all. Hail, hail to thee, 1,000 times, all hail. Hail unto thee again, again, all hail. Prostrate in front of thee, prostrate behind, prostrate on every side to thee, O all. In power boundless, measureless in strength, thou holdest all. Then thou thyself art all. If, thinking thee but friend, importunate, O Krishna, O Yadava, O friend, I cried, unknowing of thy majesty, and careless in the fondness of my love. If jesting, I irreverence showed to thee, at play, reposing, sitting or at meals, alone, O sinless one, or with my friends, forgive my error, O thou boundless one. Father of worlds, of all that moves and stands, worthier of reverence than the Guru's self, there is none like to thee. Who passeth thee? Preeminent thy power in all the worlds. Therefore I fall before thee, with my body, I worship as is fitting. Bless thou me, as father with the son, as friend with friend, with the beloved as lover, bear with me. I have seen that which none hath seen before. My heart is glad, yet faileth me for fear. Show me, O God, thine other form again. Mercy, O God of gods, home of all worlds. Diademed, mace and discus in thy hand, again I fain would see thee as before. Put on again thy four-armed shape, O Lord, O thousand-armed, of forms innumerate. The blessed Lord said, Arjuna, by my favor thou hast seen this loftiest form, by Yoga's self proclaimed. Radiant, all-penetrating, endless, first, that none except thyself hath ever seen, nor sacrifice, nor Vedas, alms, nor works, nor sharp austerity, nor study deep, can win the vision of this form for man. Foremost of Kurus, thou alone hast seen. Be not bewildered, be thou not afraid. because thou hast beheld this awful form. Cast fear away, and let thy heart rejoice. Behold again mine own familiar shape. Sanjaya said, Vasudeva, having thus spoken to Arjuna, again manifested his own form and consoled the terrified one, the Mahatma again assuming a gentle form. Arjuna said, Beholding again thy gentle human form, O Janardana, I am now collected and am restored to my own nature. The Blessed Lord said, This form of mine, beholden by thee, is very hard to see. Verily, the gods ever long to behold this form. Nor can I be seen as thou hast seen me by the Vedas, nor by austerities, nor by alms, nor by offerings, but by devotion to me alone I may thus be perceived, Arjuna, and know and seen, and entered in essence, O Parantapa. He who doeth actions for me, whose supreme good I am, my devotee, freed from attachment, without hatred of any being, he cometh unto me, O Pandava. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of Yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 11th discourse entitled The Yoga of the Vision of the Universal Form. 12th Discourse. Arjuna said, Those devotees who ever harmonized worship thee, and those also who worship the indestructible, the unmanifested, whether of these is the more learned in yoga? The Blessed Lord said, They who have fixed manas on me and ever harmonized worship me, with faith supreme endowed, these, in my opinion, are best in yoga. They who worship the indestructible, the invisible, the unmanifested, omnipresent and unthinkable, the unchanging, immutable, eternal, renouncing and subduing the senses, everywhere with buddhi well balanced, in the welfare of all rejoicing, these also come unto me. The difficulty of those whose minds are set on the unmanifested is greater, for the path of the unmanifested is hard for the embodied to reach. Those verily who renounce all actions in me and make me supreme, who worshipping meditate on me with no other yoga, these I speedily lift up from the ocean of death and existence, O Partha, their minds being fixed on me. Place thy manas in me, into me let thy buddhi enter. Then doubtless thou shalt abide in me on high hereafter. Yet if thou hast not strength firmly to place thy mind in me, then by constant practice in yoga seek to reach me, O Dhananjaya. If also thou art not equal to constant practice, perform actions for my sake. Performing actions with me for object, thou shalt attain perfection. If to do this even thou hast not strength, take refuge in union with me. Thus renouncing all fruit of action, act thou with thee self-controlled. Better indeed is wisdom than constant practice. Than wisdom, meditation is better. Than meditation, renunciation of the fruit of action. On renunciation, close follows peace. He who without hatred of any being, friendly and showing mercy, without attachment and egoism, balanced in pleasure and pain, and enduring, content with all, ever harmonious with the self-controlled, resolute with manas and buddhi fixed in me, my devotee, he is dear to me. He who harasseth not the world, and whom the world also doth not harass, freed from the harassments of joy, anger, and fear, he is dear to me. He who wants nothing is pure, expert, passionless, untroubled, renouncing every undertaking, my devotee, he is dear to me. He who neither loveth nor hateth, nor grieveth nor desireth, renouncing good and evil, my devotee, he is dear to me. He who is alike to foe and friend, and also in fame and ignominy, balanced in cold and heat, pleasures and pains, destitute of attachment, unshaken by praise or reproach, silent, wholly content with what cometh, homeless, firm in mind, my devotee, that man is dear to me. They verily who according to my teachings partake of that Amrita Dharma, endued with faith, I, their supreme object, devotees, they are surpassingly dear to me. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 12th discourse entitled The Yoga of Devotion. 13th Discourse. The Blessed Lord said, These bodies, O son of Kunti, are called the field. That which knoweth them is called the knower of the field by the sages. Understand me as the knower of the field in all fields, O Bharata. Wisdom as to the field and knower of the field, that in my opinion is wisdom. What the field is and of what nature, its changes and whence it is, and what he is and what his powers, hear that now briefly from me. Rishis have sung in manifold ways, in many various chants and in decisive Brahma Sutra verses, full of reasonings. The great elements, Anankara, Buddhi, and also the unmanifested, the 10 senses, and the one, and the 5 pastures of the senses, desire, aversion, pleasure, pain, combination, intelligence, firmness, these are cited as illustrations of the field in characteristic forms. Humility, honesty, harmlessness, endurance, rectitude, service of the teacher, purity, steadfastness, self-control, indifference amid the objects of the senses, and also absence of egoism, understanding of the evil of birth, death, old age, sickness and pain, unattachment, absence of self-identification with son, wife, or home, and constant balance of mind in wished-for and unwished-for events, unflinching devotion to me without union with another, resort to sequestered places, absence of pleasure in the company of men, constancy in the adhyatma wisdom, understanding of the object of essential wisdom, that is declared to be wisdom. All against it is ignorance. I will declare that which is to be known, that which being known immortality is gained, the beginningless supreme Brahman, called neither being nor non-being. Everywhere that was hands and feet, everywhere eyes, heads, and mouths, all hearing, he dwelleth in the world, enveloping all, shining with all sense faculties without any senses, unattached, supporting everything, and free from properties, enjoying properties, without and within all beings, immovable and also movable, from his subtlety indistinguishable, at hand and far away is that, not divided amid beings, and yet seated distributively, that is to be known as the supporter of beings. He devours and he generates. That, the light of all lights, is said to be beyond darkness. Wisdom, the wisdom to be gained, the end of wisdom, seated in the hearts of all. Thus the field, wisdom, and that which is to be known have been briefly told. My devotee, thus knowing, enters into my being. Know thou that Prakriti and Purusha are both without beginning, and know thou also that varieties and qualities are all Prakriti born. Prakriti is called the origin of what is to be done, of causes and effects. Purusha is called the origin of sensations of pleasure and pain. Purusha, seated in Prakriti, useth the qualities born of Prakriti. The attachment to the qualities is the cause of births in good and evil wombs. Spectator and permitter, supporter, enjoyer, and the great Ishvara, thus is styled the Supreme Self. In this body, the Supreme Purusha. He who knoweth this Purusha and Prakriti and the various qualities in whatsoever condition, he shall not be born again. Some by meditation behold the Self in the Self, by the Self. Others by the Sankhya Yoga, and others by the Yoga of Action. Others also, ignorant of this, having heard of it from others, worship, and these also cross beyond death, adhering to what they had heard. Whatsoever existence is born, immobile or mobile, know thou, O best of the Bharatas, it is from the union between the field and the knower of the field. Seated equally in all beings, the Supreme Ishvara, indestructible within the destructible, he who thus seeth, he seeth. Seeing indeed the same everywhere, Ishvara equally dwelling, he doth not destroy the Self by the Self, and thus treadeth the highest path. He who seeth that Prakriti verily performeth actions everywhere, and that the Self is actionless, he seeth. When he perceiveth that the varied natures of beings are rooted in one and proceed from it, then he reacheth Brahman. Beginningless, without qualities, the Supreme Self, imperishable, though seated in the body, Alkanteya, worketh not, nor is soiled. As the omnipresent Akasha is not soiled by reason of its subtlety, so seated everywhere in the body, the Self is not soiled. As this one sun illumineth the whole earth, so the Lord of the field illumineth every field, O Bharata. They who by the eye of wisdom perceive the difference between the field and the knower of the field, and the liberation of beings from Prakriti, they go to the Supreme. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of Yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 13th discourse entitled The Yoga of the Distinction Between the Field and the Knower of the Field. 14th Discourse. The Blessed Lord said, I will again proclaim that supreme wisdom, of all wisdom the best, which all the Munis have known have gone hence to the supreme perfection. Having taken refuge in this wisdom and having entered into my nature, they are not reborn even in the emanation of a universe, nor are disquieted in the dissolution. My womb is the mighty Brahman. In that I place the germ. Thence cometh the production of all beings, O Bharata. In whatsoever wombs mortals are produced, O Kanteya, the mighty Brahman is their womb, I, their generating father. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, such are the Gunas. Prakriti born they bind fast in the body, O great armed one, the indestructible dweller in the body. Of these Sattva, from its stainlessness, luminous and healthy, bindeth by the attachment to bliss and the attachment to wisdom, O sinless one. Rajas, having the nature of passion, know thou, is the source of the attachment to the thirst for life, O Kanteya, that bindeth the dweller in the body by the attachment to action. But Tamas, know thou, born of unwisdom, deludeth all dwellers in the body, that bindeth by negligence, indolence, and sloth, O Bharata. Sattva attacheth to bliss, Rajas to action, O Bharata. Tamas, verily having shrouded wisdom, attacheth on the contrary to negligence. Rajas and Tamas being overcome, Sattva remaineth, O Bharata. Rajas and Sattva, then Tamas, and Tamas and Sattva, then Rajas. When the wisdom light streameth forth from all the gates of the body, then it may be known that Sattva is increasing. Greed, outgoing energy, undertaking of actions, restlessness, desire. These are born of the increase of rajas, O best of the bharatas. Darkness, stagnation, and negligence, and also delusion. These are born of the increase of tamas, O joy of the kurus. If sattva verily prevaileth when a man goeth to dissolution, then he goeth forth to the spotless worlds of supreme knowledge. Having gone to dissolution in rajas, he is born among those attached to action. If dissolved in tamas, he is born in the wombs of the deluded. It is said the fruit of a good action is sattvic and spotless. Verily the fruit of rajas is pain, and the fruit of tamas unwisdom. From sattva wisdom is born, and also greed from rajas. Negligence and delusion are of tamas, and also unwisdom. They rise upwards who are settled in sattva. The rajasic dwell in the midmost place. The tamasic go downwards, enveloped in the vilest qualities. When the seer perceiveth no agent other than the gunas, and knoweth that which is higher than the gunas, he entereth into my nature. When the dweller in the body hath crossed over the 3 gunas, whence all bodies have been produced, liberated from birth, death, old age, and sorrow, he drinketh the nectar of immortality. Arjuna said, What are the marks of him who hath crossed over the 3 gunas, O Lord? How acteth he, and how doth he go beyond these gunas? The blessed Lord said, He who hateth not radiance, nor outgoing energy, nor even delusion, O Pandava, when present, nor longeth after them absent. He who seated as a neutral is unshaken by the gunas, saying, The gunas revolve. He who standeth apart, immovable, balanced in pleasure and pain, self-reliant, to whom a lump of earth, a rock, and gold are alike. The same to loved and unloved, firm, the same in censure and in praise, the same in honor and in ignominy, the same to friend and foe, abandoning all undertakings. He is said to have crossed over the gunas. And he who serveth me exclusively by the yoga of devotion, he, crossing beyond the gunas alike, he is fit for the abode of Brahman. For I am the abode of Brahman, of the indestructible nectar of immortality, of immemorial dharma, and of unmixed bliss. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 14th discourse entitled, The Yoga of Separation from the 3 Gunas. 15th Discourse. The Blessed Lord said, With roots above, branches below, the Astvata is said to be indestructible. The leaves of it are hymns. He who knoweth it is a Veda knower. Downwards and upwards spread the branches of it, nourished by the gunas, the objects of the senses, its buds, and its roots grow downwards, the bonds of action in the world of men. Nor here may be acquired knowledge of its form, nor its end, nor its origin, nor its nature. This strongly rooted Astvata, having been cut down by the unswerving weapon of non-attachment, then that path may be sought, treading which there is no return, going indeed to that original Purusha whence the ancient fourth streaming sprang. Without pride and delusion, victorious over the evil of attachment, dwelling constantly in Adhyatma, desire having come to an end, liberated from the pairs of opposites known as pleasure and pain, they tread, undiluted, the indestructible path. Nor doth the sun lighten there, nor moon, nor fire. Having gone thither they return not. That is my supreme dwelling place. An immemorial portion of myself, in the world of life, a living being, draweth round itself the senses of which Manas is the 6th, placed in Prakriti. When the Lord acquireth a body, and when he abandoneth it, he seizeth these and goeth with them, as the wind takes fragrances from their retreats. Taking possession of the ear, the eye, the touch, the taste, and the smell, and of manas also, he enjoyeth the objects of the senses. The deluded do not perceive him when he departeth or stayeth, or guided by the gunas, enjoyeth. The eyes of wisdom perceive. Subdued yogis perceive this, established in the self, but those subdued, the unintelligent, perceive it not, their manas untrained. That splendor issuing from the sun that enlighteneth the whole world, that which is in the moon and in fire, that splendor know as from me. Permeating the soil, I am the support of beings by my vital energy, and having become the fragrant soma, I nourish all plants. I, having become Vaishvanara, take possession of the bodies of breathing things, and united with prana and apana, I cook the 4 kinds of food. I am seated in the hearts of all, and from me memory, wisdom, and faculty of reason, and that which is to be known in all the Vedas am I, and I indeed the Veda knower and the performer of the ends of the Veda. There are 2 Purushas in this world, one destructible and one indestructible. The destructible is all beings. The indestructible is called the unchanging. The highest Purusha is verily another, declared as the Supreme Self. He who pervadeth and sustaineth the 3 worlds, the indestructible Vishvara. Since I excel the destructible, and am more excellent also than the indestructible, in the world and in the Veda I am proclaimed Purushottama. He who undiluted knoweth me thus as Purushottama. He, all-knowing, worshippeth me with his whole being, O Bharata. Thus by me this eternal secret hath been told, O sinless one. Having known this, he may become buddhi-filled, and with all action accomplished, O Bharata. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 15th discourse entitled The Yoga of Attaining Purushottama. 16th Discourse. Fearlessness, purity of heart, steadfastness in the yoga of wisdom, almsgiving, self-restraint and sacrifice, and study of the Shastras, austerity and straightforwardness, harmlessness, truth, absence of wrath, renunciation, peacefulness, absence of calumny, compassion to living beings, uncovetousness, mildness, modesty, absence of fickleness, boldness, forgiveness, fortitude, uprightness, amity, absence of pride. These become his who is born with the divine properties, O Bharata. Hypocrisy, arrogance and conceit, wrath, and also harshness and unwisdom are his who was born, O Partha, with Asuric properties. The divine properties are deemed to be for liberation, the Asuric for bondage. Grieve not, thou art born with divine properties, O Pandava. There are 2 streams of beings in this world, the divine and also the Asuric. The divine hath been described at length. Hear from me, O Partha, the Asuric. Asuric men know not either action nor inaction, nor purity of body, nor even purity of conduct, nor truth is in them. The universe is without truth, without moral basis, they say, without a God, brought about by mutual union and caused by lust and nothing else. Seeing thus, these uncurbed, ruined men of small intelligence, of fierce deeds, come forth as enemies for the destruction of the world. Surrendering themselves to insatiable desires, possessed with hypocrisy, conceit, and arrogance, Holding evil ideas through delusion, they engage in action with impure resolves, giving themselves over to numberless plans whose end is death, regarding as the highest the gratification of lusts, feeling sure that that is all, held in bondage by 100 ties of expectation, given over to lust and anger, they strive to obtain by unlawful means hoards of wealth for sensual enjoyments. This today by me hath been gained, that desire I shall obtain. This wealth is mine already, and also this shall be mine in future. I have slain this enemy, and others also I shall slay. I am a lord, I am the enjoyer, I am successful, I am powerful, happy, I am wealthy, well-born. What other is there that is like unto me? I will sacrifice, I will give alms, I will rejoice. Thus deluded by unwisdom, bewildered by numerous thoughts, enmeshed in the web of delusion, attached by the gratification of desire, they fall downwards into a foul hell. Self-conceited, obstinate, filled with pride and the intoxication of wealth, they perform lip sacrifices with hypocrisy, contrary to scriptural ordinance. Given over to egoism, power, insolence, lust, and wrath, these malicious ones hate me in the bodies of others and in their own. These haters, pitiless, vilest among men, impure, I ever throw down in the worlds into Asuric wombs. Obtaining an Asuric womb, deluded birth after birth, attaining not to me, O Konteya, thus they tread the lowest path. Triple is this gate of hell, destructive of the self, lust, wrath, and greed. Therefore let man renounce these three. A man liberated from these three gates of darkness, O son of Kunti, accomplisheth his own welfare, and thus reacheth the highest path. He who, having cast aside the ordinances of the Shastras, proceedeth as his own desire leadeth him, attaineth not to perfection, nor happiness, nor the highest path. Therefore let the Shastras be thy authority in determining what ought to be done, or what ought not to be done. Having learned what hath been said by these scriptural texts, thou oughtest to work in this world. Thus, in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of Yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 16th discourse entitled The Yoga of Division between the Divine and the Asuric, 17th discourse. Arjuna said, Those that, casting aside the ordinances of the Shastras, sacrifice and are possessed of faith, what is verily their position, O Krishna? Is it one of sattva, rajas, or tamas? The Blessed Lord said, Threefold is the faith of the embodied, each born of its own nature, sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Hear thou of each of these. The faith of each is shaped to his own nature, O Bharata. The man consists of his faith. That which his faith is, he is even that. Sattvic men worship the gods. Rajasic, the yakshas and rakshasas. The others, the tamasic folk, worships pretas and troops of bhutas. The men who perform severe austerities, unenjoined by the Shastras, wedded to hypocrisy and egoism, impelled by the force of their desires and passions, unintelligent, tormenting the aggregated elements forming the body, and me also, seated in the body, know these Asuric in their resolves. The food also which is dear to each is threefold, as also sacrifice, austerity, and almsgiving. Hear thou this distinction of these. The foods that augment vitality, energy, vigor, health, joy, and relish, savory, oleaginous, solid, and agreeable, are dear to the sattvic. The rajasic desire bitter, sour, saline, over-hot, pungent, dry, and burning foods, producing pain, grief, and sickness. That which is stale and tasteless, putrid and corrupt, leavings also and filth, is the food dear to the tamasic. A sacrifice which is offered by men without any desire for fruit, as enjoined by the ordinances under the firm belief that sacrifice ought verily to be performed, is sattvic. That sacrifice offered with a view verily to fruit, and also indeed for self-glorification, O best of the Bharatas, know thou to be rajasic. The sacrifice contrary to the ordinances without distributing food, devoid of the mantras and without gifts, empty of faith, is said to be tamasic. Worship given to the gods, to the twice-born, to gurus and to the wise, purity, straightforwardness, continence, and harmlessness are called the austerity of the body. Speech causing no annoyance, truthful, pleasant, and beneficial, the constant practice of the study of the Shastras are called the austerity of speech. Mental calmness, equilibrium, silence, self-control, purity of nature, this is called the austerity of the mind. This threefold austerity, performed by man with the utmost faith, without desire for fruit, harmonized, is said to be sattvic. The austerity which is practiced with the object of gaining respect, honor, and reverence, and with hypocrisy, is said to be rajasic, unstable, and transitory. That austerity done under a deluded understanding, with self-torture or with the object of destroying another, that is declared tamasic. Gift ought to be made, thus saying that alms given without chance of return, in a fit place and time, to a worthy person, that alms is accounted sattvic. That given with a view to receiving in return, or looking for fruit again, or grudgingly, that alms is accounted rajasic. That alms given at unfit place and time, and to unworthy persons, irreverently and contemptuously, that is declared tamasic. Om Tat Sat. This has been declared to be the threefold designation of Brahman. By that were created of old Brahmins, Vedas, and sacrifices. Therefore, with the pronunciation of Om, the acts of sacrifice, gift, and austerity are always performed, as laid down by the ordinances by the knowers of Brahman. With the pronunciation of Tat are performed the acts of sacrifice, austerity, and gift, and without aiming at fruit by those desiring liberation. Sat is used in the sense of reality and goodness. Likewise, O Partha, the sound Sat is used in the sense of a good work. Steadfastness in sacrifice, austerity, and gift is also called Sat, and also an action for the sake of these or that is even named Sat. Whatsoever oblation, gift, austerity, deed is wrought without faith, asat, it is called, O Partha. It is not here or hereafter. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of Yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 17th discourse entitled The Yoga of the Division of Threefold Faith. 18th Discourse. Arjuna said, I desire, O mighty armed, to know severally the essence of renunciation, O Hrishikesha, and of abandonment, O Keshanisudana. The Blessed Lord said, Sages know as renunciation the relinquishment of works with desire. The abandonment of the fruit of all actions is called abandonment by the wise. Action should be abandoned as an evil, declare some wise men. The actions of sacrifice, gift, and austerity should not be abandoned, say others. Hear my conclusions as to that abandonment, O best of the Bharatas. Since abandonment, O tiger of men, has been explained as threefold. The action of sacrifice, gift, and austerity should not be abandoned. but it should be indeed performed. Sacrifice, gift, and also austerity are the purifiers of the wise, but even these actions should be done leaving aside attachment and fruit, O Partha. That is my certain and best belief. Verily, renunciation of actions that are prescribed is not proper. The abandonment thereof from delusion is said to be tamasic. He who abandoneth an action from fear of physical suffering, saying, painful, thus performing a rajasic abandonment, obtaineth not the fruit of abandonment. He who saying, it ought to be done, performeth an ordained action, O Arjuna, abandoning attachment and also fruit, that abandonment is regarded as sattvic. The abandoner pervaded by sattva, intelligent and with doubts cut away, hateth not unpleasurable action, nor is attached to pleasurable. An embodied being is unable completely to abandon actions. Verily, he who abandoneth the fruit of action, he is said to be an abandoner. Good, evil, and mixed, threefold is the fruit of action hereafter for the non-abandoner, but there is none ever for the renouncer. These 5 causes, O mighty armed, learn of me as declared in the Sankhya for the accomplishment of all actions. The place, the actor, and the various organs, and the several endeavors in various kinds, and the presiding deity is also the 5th. Whatever action a man performeth by his body, speech, and mind, whether right or the opposite, these 5 are its causer. That being so, he verily who looketh on his self, which is isolated, as the actor, owing to the untrained discriminative faculty, he of perverted intelligence seeth not. He who is free from the egoistic notion, whose discriminative faculty is pure, though he slay these peoples, he slayeth not, nor is bound. Knowledge, what is the known and the knower, the threefold impulse to action, the organ, the action, the actor, the threefold constituents of action. Knowledge, action, and actor are said to be also threefold, from the difference of qualities. Hear thou also these duly in the enumeration of qualities. That by which one indestructible cause is seen in all beings, inseparate in the separated, know thou that knowledge as sattvic. But that knowledge which knoweth that several manifold natures in all beings as separate, that knowledge know thou as rajasic. And that which clingeth to each one thing as if it were the whole, without reason, without grasping the reality, narrow, that is declared to be tamasic. An action which is ordained, devoid of attachment, done without affection or hatred, without desire of obtaining fruit, that is called sattvic. But that action that is done by one longing for desires, or again with egoism, or with much effort, that is declared to be rajasic. The action undertaken from delusion, without regarding the consequences, loss and injury to others, and personal strength, that is declared to be tamasic. Liberated from attachment and not being an egoist, endued with firmness and vigor, unturned by success or failure, that actor is called sattvic. Passionate, desiring to obtain the fruit of actions, greedy, harmful, impure, endued with joy and sorrow, such an actor is pronounced rajasic. Listless, vulgar, stubborn, cheating, malicious, indolent, despairful, procrastinating, that actor is called tamasic. The division of buddhi and of firmness also, threefold according to the qualities, hear thou, as will be declared by me unreservedly and severally, O Dhananjaya. That which knoweth action and inaction, what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, fear and fearlessness, bondage and liberation, that buddhi is sattvic, O Partha. That by which one understandeth aright dharma and adharma, and also what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, that buddhi, O Partha, is rajasic. That which, enwrapped in darkness, thinketh a dharma to be dharma, and seeth all things perverted, that buddhi or partha is tamasic. The firmness, unflinching through yoga, by which one restraineth the actions of manas, of the life breaths and of the sense organs, that firmness, O partha, is sattvic. The firmness, O Arjuna, by which one holdeth fast dharma, pleasure and wealth, and is from attachment desirous of fruit, that firmness, O partha, is rajasic. That by which a slow-witted person doth not abandon sleep, fear, grief, and also stupidity, that firmness, O partha, is tamasic. And now the threefold kinds of pleasure, hear thou from me, O bull of the Bharatas, that in which one by practice rejoiceth, and which putteth an end to pain, which at first is nauseous, but in the end is as the nectar of immortality. That pleasure is said to be sattvic, born of the serenity derived from a knowledge of the self. That which at first is as the nectar of immortality from the union of the senses with the objects of senses, but in the end is nauseous, that pleasure is accounted rajasic. That pleasure which at first in its results is delusive of the self, arising from sleep, indolence, and heedlessness, that is declared tamasic. There is not an entity, either on the earth or again in heaven among the gods, that is liberated from these three qualities born of Prakriti. Of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, O Parantapa, the karmas have been disturbed according to the qualities born of their own natures: serenity, self-restraint, austerity, purity, forgiveness and also uprightness, knowledge, experience, piety, of the Brahman karma born of his own nature, prowess, boldness, firmness, dexterity, and also not flying from battle, generosity, the nature of a ruler, are the Kshatriya karma born of his own nature. Plowing, protection of cattle, and trade are the Vaishya karma born of his own nature. Action of the nature of service is the Shudra karma born of his own nature. The man reacheth perfection who is content in his own karma. Listen thou how perfection is won by him who is content in his own karma. That, the fourth giver of beings, by whom all this is spread out, by worshipping him in his own karma, a man winneth perfection. Better is one's own dharma, though destitute of merits, than the well-executed dharma of another. He who doeth the karma laid down by his own nature incurreth not sin. Nature-born karma, O son of Kunti, though attended with evil, one ought not to renounce. All undertakings are enveloped by evil as fire by smoke. He whose buddhi is everywhere unattached, the self-subdued, dead to desires, he goeth to the supreme perfection of freedom from karma by renunciation. How he who hath attained perfection obtaineth Brahman, that highest end of wisdom, that learneth thou from me only succinctly, O Kanteya. United to buddhi purified, controlling the self by firmness, having renounced sound and the other objects of the senses, having laid aside passion and hatred, frequenting a sequestered place, abstemious in food, speech, body, and mind subdued, fixed in meditation and yoga, taking refuge in dispassion, having abandoned egoism, violence, arrogance, desire, wrath, covetousness, devoid of worldly affection and peaceful, he is fit to become Brahman. Becoming Brahman, serene in the self, he neither grieveth nor desireth, balanced among all beings, he obtaineth supreme devotion unto me. By devotion he knoweth me fully, what I am and what my essence. Having thus known my essence, he forthwith entereth into me. Even performing all actions continually, taking refuge in me, by my grace he obtaineth the eternal, indestructible abode. Abandoning mentally all works in me, I, thy chief good, resorting to Buddhi Yoga, have thy thought ever on me. Thinking on me, thou shalt conquer all obstacles by my grace. But if from egoism thou wilt not give ear, thou wilt be destroyed utterly. If taking refuge in egoism, thou thinkest, I will not fight, to no purpose thy determination, nature will constrain thee. O son of Kunti, bound by thine own karma arising from thine own nature, that which from delusion thou desirest not to do, that even involuntarily thou wilt perform. Ishvara dwelleth in the hearts of all beings, O Arjuna, by his Maya causing all beings to revolve as though mounted on a potter's wheel. Flee unto him for shelter with all thy being, O Bharata. By his grace thou shalt obtain supreme peace, the everlasting dwelling place. Thus hath wisdom, most secret of all secrets, been declared unto thee by me. Having reflected over it fully, then act thou as thou desirest. Listen thou again to my supreme word, most secret of all. Most beloved art thou of me, therefore will I speak for thy benefit. Place thy manas on me, be my devotee, sacrifice to me, prostrate thyself before me, thou shalt come even to me. I pledge thee my troth, thou art dear to me. Renouncing all dharmas, come unto me alone for shelter. Sorrow not, I will liberate thee from all sins. This is not to be ever spoken by thee to anyone who is without religious austerities, nor to one who is not devoted, nor as well to one who desireth not to listen, nor yet to him who speaketh evil of me. He who shall declare this supreme secret among my devotees, having shown this supreme devotion for me, verily he shall come to me. There is no doubt thereof. Nor is there any among men who performeth dearer service to me than he, nor any other than he shall be more beloved by me on earth. And he who shall study this sacred dialogue of ours, by him will have been offered to me the sacrifice of wisdom. Such is my mind. The man also who, full of faith, heareth it unreviling, he indeed, liberated, shall obtain the spotless worlds of the righteous. I hope this is heard, O son of Pritha, with one pointed intelligence. Is thy delusion caused by unwisdom destroyed, O Dhananjaya? Arjuna said, Destroyed my delusion, I have gained the knowledge of the truth through thy grace, O Achyuta. I am firm, my doubts have fled away, I will do according to thy word. Sanjaya said, I heard this marvelous dialogue of Vasudeva and the great-souled Partha, causing my hair to stand on end. By the favor of Vyasa, I listened to this supreme secret, yoga from the Lord of Yoga, Krishna himself speaking in my presence. O King, remembering this marvelous and holy dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I rejoice again and again. And remembering that most marvelous form of Hari, great is my wonder, O King. I rejoice again and again. Wherever is Yoga's Lord, Krishna, or wherever is Partha, the archer, there are firmly established prosperity, victory, and happiness. So I think. Thus in the glorious Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Brahman, the scripture of Yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 18th discourse entitled The Yoga of Liberation by Renunciation. Thus the Bhagavad Gita hath ending, Peace be to all beings.